The obvious theme of Trump's economic policy is the term chaos, right? There's an incoherence to it, which makes it difficult, extra difficult to plan for the future. What's the economy going to be? What's the state of Trump's trade wars going to be? And we have an interesting sign that all of the red alert warning signs for our economy are starting to get to Trump's advisors. You remember the story we recently covered of literally two of Trump's top officials finding a time when another one who was more pro-tariff was stuck in a meeting, and they rushed to the Oval Office to convince Trump to roll back a bunch of the tariffs. And a similar thing's playing out now is my speculation that if you imagine Trump laid out his whole tariff philosophy in a Google Doc, which he could never be coherent enough and patient enough to take time to do that, to actually lay it all down in text. But let's imagine he did that. It looks like he's preparing to just do the whole select all, delete of that plan and pretend like we didn't all watch him articulate his position about tariffs. Now, I hope he is hitting the delete button on this entire plan. I hope he is bending the knee and backing down and all those things, because that'll be better for the economy. But for his logic, it won't make any sense. And so I want to continue making that case so that when it maybe happens and he completely backs down on much of this approach, we know why, because that's important. NBC News reports that markets jump today after Trump softens rhetoric on China and Fed chair. Investors also took heart that Elon Musk was stepping back from his White House role to refocus on Tesla. I'll show you the clips that sparked all of these different headlines about the shift in Trump's tone. China, Newsweek reports, responds to Trump's softening tone on rhetoric. China said, "Our doors are wide open for talks," after President Donald Trump softened his tone on the unfolding trade war between the world's two largest economies. What is this? It's panic. It's panic from Trump about this. The trade war has hammered global markets and raised fears of recession. The International Monetary Fund shaved 0.5% off its growth forecast for 2025 for the world. The whole world, that big world, the whole world shaving the forecast, which is now 2.8%, mostly because of one man's incoherent tariff policy. Now, despite him saying he was going to charge forward no matter what, and the way that we got to go back to the late 1800s where we were really a wealthy nation, relatively, he would say, all because of tariffs. So we're going to have this extensive web of tariffs, which are the point. They're going to make our country wealthy. But now we start to hear in the clips you're about to watch a very different story being told. Again, because as they should, they're panicking and wanting to walk this back. Wall Street Journal says White House considers slashing China tariffs to de-escalate trade war. Levies could be cut by more than half in some cases, although Trump hasn't yet made final decisions. So he's going to be the first to blink, maybe. Now, these are the clips that prompted a lot of this reporting, which is Trump being asked about this trade war and saying, no, I'm not playing hardball, after making the case that he was playing hardball over and over again. If you appreciate this show, please do click the subscribe button. We have a lot to go through in this segment.
And our country is getting stronger all the time because the other was not sustainable.
But how many times started with China? Are you going to play hardball with them? Are you going to mention COVID?
Well, I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going to mention COVID. I'm not going to say, I'm going to play hardball with China. I'm going to play hardball with you, President Xi. No. We're going to be very nice. They're going to be very nice. And we'll see what happens. But ultimately, they have to make a deal because otherwise they're not going to be able to deal in the United States.
Again, even that language about how it's all just about making some sort of deal. We're hearing now a lot of Trump's defenders saying the ultimate goal is just to get global tariffs declined in general, to open up trade in general, which, all right, cool, but no. And remember that that's not the case that they were making before, that extensive tariffs is how you bring back manufacturing. If they were to drop all of the tariffs or significantly do so, they would be agreeing to the argument we've been making, which these are not the means. These are not, I should say, the ends. I get that flipped off there. These are not the outcome, the end goal, which is what Trump would often say, if you'll remember. Now, the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, started to say what we've been saying, which is that America first is not America only.
I wish to be clear. America first does not mean America alone. To the contrary, it is a call for deeper collaboration and mutual respect among trade partners. Far from stepping back, America First seeks to expand U.S. leadership in international institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. By embracing a stronger leadership role.
Globalists. They're globalists. Is what Alex Jones would say if that were a Democrat giving that speech, which, yeah, it's super important that we are a leader economically and that we engage in these international organizations and that we enhance global trade. And you all said that was bad. Seem to be flipping the script a little bit than this. Just listen to the incoherence of this statement.
I'm not, but 100% of all of these documents are being delivered. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, you said you're ultimately going to make a deal with China, but where do things stand right now? Have you talked to him?
My relationship with President Xi is great. It's been great for a long time. We've had a very good relationship, and I think we'll make a deal with China.
Mr. President, in your meeting with...
If we don't make a deal, we'll set it. We'll just set the number, and, think they'll want to be a part of the United States. We're doing great.
China wants to be a part of the United States? Is that next? Canada, we're going to annex, then China next?
This is the golden age, as Paul said. We're talking about the golden age. It will never be a time like this, in my opinion. And China wants to be a part of it.
Guys, we are getting ready. Here's what we're getting ready for, okay? This is why I'm saying this is a historic moment where the president came into office saying that extensive high tariffs that prevented importing of goods so that all things, essentially, we'd have a very isolationist economic mentality that would allow for U.S. manufacturing to boom, even though we've seen the enhancement of U.S. manufacturing in much less destructive ways like we saw in the Biden years. But that was his case. So then he comes into office and turns on and off and on and off and on and off this tariff plan. Rolls it back and then re-implements it, and then Liberation Day. And then once Liberation Day goes into effect, actually half of what we did we're taking back. And causes so many warning signs and so much pain and predicted pain that he just ends up striking, in the grand scheme of things, number one, deals he could have just facilitated through diplomacy, and number two, probably unremarkable deals. Or no deals, we'll see. And then goes back to the status quo and proclaims that to be the victory. I'm seeing as maybe more likely than the alternative. That's what we're walking into, that we're going to be told we need to applaud for Trump because he did a bunch of chaotic things with tariffs that he said, if implemented for the long term, would lead to, by putting up that block for trade, it would cause us here domestically to prosper. And then he's going to completely delete and abandon that entire plan and tell us we should be excited and applaud him for the fact that now he's doing what we said was the right thing the whole time. And then in the meanwhile, creating all this needless economic hardship. Than this.
Earlier today, Treasury Secretary Gusson suggested that with tariff rates as high as they are now, it's effectively an embargo of trade between the United States and China. Do you see that?
That's true. 145% is very high, and it won't be that high. It's not going to be that high. It got up to there. We were talking about fentanyl, where, various elements built it up to 145. No, it won't be anywhere near that high.
What level do you think it'll come down to if you have it?
It'll come down substantially, but it won't be zero. It used to be zero. We were just destroyed. China was...
And that's obviously false. There wasn't 0% tariffs on China. Then another one of these warning signs that's maybe impacting this shift in tone that has given a little bit of life to the stock market today. American economic sentiment fell in a recent Gallup survey, with some metrics faltering significantly. And it found that 53% of Americans believe their personal financial situation is getting worse. Equity and bond markets have whipsawed in the wake of what Trump called Liberation Day and the chaotic implementation of the tariffs. And the pessimism goes this deep. The finding that a majority of respondents feel their financial situation is getting worse is the highest number since Gallup started tracking the statistic in 2001. Yeah. So now we're in this situation where either Trump is going to charge forward and continue. Remember, you still have these baseline 10% tariffs on the world. And so that's significant. He either stays forward on that course and continues with the idea that the way that we stay competitive with China is by these absolutely drastic, wildly high tariffs. And then that will come with the outcomes we've been assessing for a very long time. Or he backs off, proclaims it a victory, and then despite the fact that as one metric example to kind of get you ready, the stock market would have been way higher by now if we hadn't had all this interruption. They'll take credit for major stock market gains like they do every time there's this, like I said, life breathed into the stock market because Trump hints that maybe he's going to back off of what MAGA says is the genius plan. Every time Trump indicates or does back off of his own plan, that's when there's some economic excitement. And then whenever he doubles down on it, there's a lot of economic pessimism. So all of this will have been for nothing if he backs off of it, which I hope he does, or he'll continue forward with it. And again, we've assessed the consequences of that so many times. Now, one other you saw in this headline, it said markets jump after Trump softens rhetoric on China and Fed chair. We've talked about the dangers, really catastrophic dangers of Trump trying to force out against the law Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, and he seems to be even backing off of that.
It's not good.
Mr. President, you've said...
I don't want to talk about that because I have no intention of firing him.
Mr. President,
No intention. And you heard some people online saying there's no world in which Trump has ever suggested this or ever hinted at trying to get rid of Jerome Powell.
Chair, a very factual question. The Federal Reserve, you say you don't want interest rates to go higher. You've gone backwards and forwards about whether you want to keep Jerome Powell as chair of the Federal Reserve. His term as chair runs on to May 2026. Would you seek to remove or demote him?
Look, I think it's the greatest job in government. You show up to the office once a month and you say, let's see, flip a coin. And
That's exciting. Isn't that fun that he thinks that's what the Fed chair does?
flip a coin. And everybody talks about you like you're a god. Oh, what will he do? I mean, before, the guy used to walk into my office, he was like begging. Oh, he was fine.
But you did talk you talked about removing him once.
I did because
I did.
he was keeping the rates too high.
I did, he says, about the past time he suggested that. So it's not unrealistic to be afraid of that. And, it's funny, I just got apologies. I just got one of those notifications. Musk on Trump tariffs. I'm an advocate for free trade and lower tariffs. So now you have Besant going, when we say America first and Trump used to articulate that to be isolationism, we actually believe that it means more cooperation. We actually think that we're going to do more trade. We think we should do even more free trade than free trade. We think it should be free trade. Oh, okay. Cool, but that's not at all what y'all were explaining before. Then Levitt got asked about this.
Conversations yet with China happening?
I actually do have something to share on that. I asked the president about this before coming out here, and he wanted me to share with all of you that we're doing very well in respect to a potential trade deal with China. As I mentioned, there have now been 18 proposals in more than 100 countries around the world who are wanting to make a deal with the United States of America, and the president and the administration are setting the stage for a deal with China. So we feel everyone involved wants to see a trade deal happen, and the ball is moving in the right direction. Sure.
setting the stage for a deal with China, what does that mean? Has the president spoken directly with Xi yet?
I don't have anything to read out on a direct talk between the president and President Xi, but we will continue to keep you updated.
And Secretary Besant reportedly today told investors that the trade standoff with China he expects will be de-escalating soon because, as he described it, reportedly the situation is unsustainable. Is the president considering taking steps to de-escalate the situation with China?
Again, I just read you words directly from the President of the United States. Those are moments ago.
Now, I know sometimes it feels that it's really easy to criticize from the sidelines, but not, provide the alternative. So let me remind you, I've said it before, but what the alternative could have been. Instead of Trump spending his whole life, and then definitely the campaign trail, explaining that the way you boom the American economy and the way that you strengthen manufacturing and create jobs is extensive, not targeted strategic tariffs, like everyone is for whenever you believe that cause is justified. Sometimes you're okay with the consequences because of whatever the outcome is that you're looking for. But across the board, we should essentially create and consume everything that we do here. That type of philosophy he's articulated for a very long time. Then going forward to implement something that matches that, which is these insane draconian policies. And then reversing, and then whatever deals he ends up striking, however significant, claiming those to be, see, this is what we were trying to do the whole time. Instead, that causes very little economic instability. As you're campaigning and getting into office, you say, here are my demands. China, I want you to change this trade barrier, or I want you to do this domestically, or do that with our economic partnership. And Canada, I want you to do this on fentanyl. And Mexico, I want you to do this. Here's my demands. If you don't strike a deal in the first 100 days of my presidency where I get what I've requested, then I will implement XYZ economic punishments. These sanctions, these tariffs, etc. So you can use it as a threat if you had real concessions you wanted from our trading partners, but you could give to the American people and to the global economy a level of certainty of, okay, most likely these are reasonable demands. If everyone gives into them, we won't have to see a trade war with everybody. But he started with the trade war first, and then will retroactively say, here are the things that I wanted all along, just based off what he's able to get. So cause the instability first, cause the pain, cause what we're going to see years long aftermath of these trade wars, and then later proclaim whatever concessions you get, which obviously we can get concessions where the U.S. are freaking A. You proclaim those to be the real strategic victory, even if the significance of them doesn't match the significance of the economic pain and instability that you cause. And so just lay out the demands and then tell them what the punishment will be over a period of time if they don't follow through on them. That's how you get a deal without the economy having to be hurt, because most likely the countries would have given in. But instead, he does the I want to show I'm a big boy strategy. And then one little CNN back and forth that demonstrates the absurdity of this.
I'm not convinced, because I basically think what happened is that the president looked at the headlines that the stock market has collapsed, the bond market is collapsing, our global credibility is collapsing, and he finally met a force that is stronger than him, which is the U.S. economy and Jay Powell. And Jay Powell was not intimidated, and I think it's actually a lesson. If you were not intimidated by Donald Trump, he may well back down. And
Don't you agree, Joe Biden to continue Donald Trump's tariffs on China and increase them into more things like solar panels?
There's nothing, just to be clear, there's a big difference between 5%, 10% tariffs on solar panels and 145% tariffs on everything.
But the through line is getting tough on China and disentangling. Are Democrats now for China?
Is it really getting tough on China to say, after all these weeks, to say, oh, we're going to make a deal, we're backing down? He's basically
But you didn't answer my question. Are Democrats want to take China's side in this, or do they want to get tough on China and disentangle?
I think it's not tough on China, actually, to threaten them and then back down. What? They learned that you're weak and they're strong.
No, the job he's going to do.
I want to hear what he says. Don't talk. Go ahead. Finish your point.
Yes, my basic point is I think it's a demonstration of weakness to threaten another country and then back down. I think that is not tough. That's weak. And I think a president who did that, if a Democrat basically made all these threats and then climbed back down, every Republican would be attacking them as weak.
Exactly right. Share your thoughts in the comments.